Hi everyone, welcome. Model Man Frank here. How y'all doing? Colin, how you doing? Yes, you made it. Can't stay long. Okay, no problem. Well, if you have to eat dinner, dinner's important, especially with family. Remember, family always comes first. So, just to let you guys know what's been going on, I've been working on the models, some of the aircraft that some airplanes that I've had in my shop for a little bit. One of them is called the Fieseler Storch. It was built and designed by the Germans back in the 30s. They needed something that would land very short field takeoff aircraft, and they came up with that model. Fieseler Storch was first flown in 1936. It was introduced in 1937. Hello, EQ RC. How you doing, sir? It was primarily used by the Luftwaffe, the French Army, and the French Air Force. We're talking about the Fieseler Storch. So basically, it was liaison aircraft. It did have a gun on it to protect itself, just like every other liaison aircraft that flew out there. Let me show you the plane. So this is the plane as it looks since last time. I was able to pretty much basically put all this back together. If you look inside here, I was able to fabricate the parts, but as you saw in the video, let me put the mic out of the way. You can see I was able to, fabricate this side. Let's see the camera. You can be able to see it right there. I fabricated this side, and I was able to put the stringer across. It gives it some rigidity and strength, a lot more than it had before. The wings are on the floor here. I had to order I went ahead and ordered a new batch of servos for it, Metal Gear servos, which I think they're a lot better. And awesome, man. Hope you put some nice stuff out about it. Love to hear more about what ARF you got. This is not actually an ARF. This is a kit built. It's got the Dancing Wings Hobby. It's basically, you can buy this kit on Hobby King. Hobby King will sell you the model. It is a balsa wood kit. It comes from what I've been told, the kit itself is really, all the parts are laid out, but the instructions are weird. It doesn't really have like a table where you can put stuff out or any like design features. So you're really limited to what you can. What happened to this plane was that I did fly it on its first flight, on its maiden flight with me. It had a maiden flight with your previous owner. He only flew it like 2 or 3 times, and then he's put it up for sale, and I ended up buying it from him. The aircraft came with this large motor on it. It is a Turnigy 800, and it was powered by a 4S battery. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 4S, 4S battery. It was a 5,000 or 3,300, which is pretty much what I'll power it with also. I was coming in for a landing. I had put the flaps and the slats. So when you put the flaps down on this plane, the slats go down also. I'll show you one of the wings in a moment. So the plane was coming in. It was straight and narrow, but I wasn't keeping the throttle up. And this one, you have to keep the throttle up. And as I kept the throttle was not going up, I wasn't keeping it leveled. I kept it banked up. it stalled the aircraft rolled over and pitched into the ground. So this whole superstructure, basically, if you watch the video, the superstructure just cracked. This whole thing, it really wasn't attached. All this here was like, it was attached to the ribs, but it wasn't like all this panel here was not really attached to something strong. So I made it a little stronger. I did glue all this here, but I do have to sand. Like, I have to sand all this extra resin off, and I have to actually glue all this together. So this is one aircraft I'm working on. So yeah, this is the Fieseler Storch, but it's a modification that I've never seen before, or iteration, because they put these stanchions on, and actually the original aircraft, there was a post that came out here, and then this would actually bend in. So they made a version, Chinese version, I guess. But it is a kind of funky airplane. It is pretty heavy too. I'm actually holding it, and it's got weight to it. When flying this airplane, you got to keep the speed up and watch how you fly the plane. The previous owner actually put the weights on it. So once I get the whole plane back together, I'll have to do the weight and balance on it and make sure everything fits really well together. Let me show you the wings. I got a wing right here, actually, that has no servos in it. This is the wing. This is one of the wings, actually. It's two wings, as you know. The wings are held together with a post. There's a post that actually goes through one of these alignment posts, most likely this one. And it keeps everything together. There's a carbon fiber rod that's going in through this part right here. This will actually allow me to pivot the wings back and swing it back and actually be able to STOL the aircraft. But there's actually an RC guy online. I think it's J Models. He puts out a lot of shorts. He went and bought this model, and they had it painted up all in tan. A couple of people have actually built this aircraft, but as you can see, so a STOL aircraft has a very small wing. But when it comes in for a landing or for a takeoff, very short field takeoff, the slats go down, flaps go down, and then you can take off in a very short amount of distance. Also, the landing is the same way. So you can put the slat down and flaps down, and it'll land the plane the same way. I have to get used to flying this plane. So when I do fly it, I'll probably fly and do a landing without. I'll do a couple of practice touch and goes to make sure I'm really good at it. And then I'll deploy this flat and slat and see how this works. The previous guy, he didn't make it like very scale or anything like that, but it's not a big deal. It is just basically a really rudimentary kit. Little background history on this plane. During the 1930s, the Reich Aviation Ministry, RLM, issued an invitation to actually build this plane. At the time, helicopters were kind of like a thought. Like, the Germans were playing around with it, and so was Igor Sikorsky. Igor Sikorsky knew the principle. He was the actual grandfather of the helicopter. The Germans really had the principle down, but they could never really get it to work and carry things and really make it easy with a tail rotor. The Russian Igor Sikorsky did make it work. So if anybody ever says, oh, the Germans were the ones that created the helicopter, they thought of the principle, but they could never get it to actually work. They actually built a helicopter that was a two-rotor helicopter with a propeller in the front. So that's a gyrocopter. Igor Sikorsky was the one that actually built, designed, and actually made the helicopter work and made it functional. So the Americans came out with the helicopter really as a useful tool in Burma. And it was only fabric. It was fabric covered. I mean, so the thing was hot as heck. If they had to do it in the winter time and going up into Europe, I don't think the helicopter would have lasted. Helicopters were mainly used after the war for picking up downed pilots. It wasn't really until the Vietnam War that they start to attach guns to it. But that's another video for another day, and we'll talk about helicopters on that one. You know, I'll probably bring in a helicopter. Actually, I got a model helicopter here. I haven't even built one. I won't fly model helicopters. I think I don't get the principle about RC helicopters unless it's a scaled down helicopter. I really don't like helicopters, really. I mean, there's a guy at our field that flies in and goes back. He puts it sideways and goes back and forth, back and forth. I just don't see it then. You know, I guess it's a skill thing. It's a skill that you have. And some people like to have that skill and like to be able to know that they're doing that skill back and forth. I don't see it. But back to this. So yeah, he made it pretty cool. So it's got ailerons. So this is the servo for the flap control. And then this one is for the slat control. And then there's aileron up here. Sorry. There's ailerons also. It's a pretty cool airplane. Also, the other one that I showed a video on is, oh, by the way, this aircraft comes with Dancing Hobbies, gives you a cowling. Now, I don't know if the cowling is actually, you make the cowling, but it is, this one was actually put with fiberglass and he was able to put it all together. But this is the cowling for it. And this is pretty scale. This is to scale what the cowling would have looked like. It does give a good feed of air. I'm probably going to drill out the holes here just to get more air into this motor. But this is the fuselage. Puss moth. Here's what's going on with the puss moth. I got the tail on. And puss moth was actually built in the 1920s. Let me bring up my puss moth information here so I can give you guys a little treat on the puss moth aircraft. There we go. So this plane was actually built in 1929. 1929 to 1933 was built. There were only 285 of the actual puss moth built. The tail, I've monocoated. This is going to be built in a two-tone color. I was thinking red and yellow, but I don't really like that color. So I'm doing a red with a white scheme on it. So this opening here will be white, and the front fuselage, basically this bottom half will all be white, and then the top will be red. Wings will be kind of like a mismatch of red and yellow, red and white, sorry. Probably the front slats will be red to the back of the aircraft will be white. So it'll be a mismatch. I got to make the cowling for it. Cowling will be up front. I do have picked out a motor for it. It'll be a small motor. This is a very light airplane, so it'll probably be a 3300 3-cell battery in it with a 40 ESC. And it's basic balls of going to have elevator and rudder control for the landing gear, and then aileron control. I built the wings for it. The wings are being fabricated as we speak. Here's the wing structure up here. Oops. Very delicate wing structure. I think once I get the monocoat on it, it'll get a little bit more rigid. This is the center section. Center section is pretty flimsy. I'm going to put probably some more wood back here, and then I'll do a crisscross. And there's a window that goes up on top also, so I'll make that also structure-wise. Also, if you see behind me, I've got a AT6. AT6 was North Americans' answer to the BT-13. BT-13 came out first, then the T-6 came out later. It was mass produced. It was a plane that you would actually, so as a pilot, you would learn how to fly a biplane first, then you would be moved over to a monoplane. So first you would be flying the biplane. You would learn the characteristics, the stalls, the loops, the rolls, everything like that. They would get you used to that. And then they would graduate you to the BT-13, which was a slower aircraft, still had a fixed landing gear. Excuse me. You would fly that, get used to a low engine, and then they wanted something with a little bit of a fighter characteristics. They move you into a T6, which would have retractable landing gear. The main landing gear would retract. It had a big Pratt & Whitney motor on the front, and you would get used to that. And then they would graduate you into, ending of your class into either a P-40 Warhawk, a P-38, or one of the other leading fighters like the Mustang or anything like that. But yeah, this is the T6. So this aircraft here, I got this from somebody. They left it at the club, and it was kind of all jumbled in parts. I kind of figured out what the parts were. This was kind of off by itself, and then the tail was off by itself. I actually had to fabricate the tail because this tail, this piece here was already ready, but this part here wasn't. That's a little better, right? So there's this top section right here. I just don't have that one with me right now, but it's somewhere around here. So there's a top section that goes here with a canopy, and then all your radio and instruments goes on the top. I'm not sure what kit this is. This is a kit that I really have never seen. I don't know anything about it. I'm basically going to have to. The person didn't even cut the slats in, so I got to cut the slats into. The ailerons into it, and it doesn't have a landing gear, but I have to make the landing gear. So, but that's one of the other kits that many kits that I'm working on. I also have the glider. That if anybody watched the video of me putting the glider together this morning, a friend of mine gave me that glider, and it's a pretty big wing glider. The wing structure is right behind me here. It's probably about the size. The wing structure is about the size of the bird of time, but it's able to be removed. I'm going to get up right now, and I'm going to go get the wing structure so you can see what it looks like. So here's the glider. So this is the really pretty glider. Yeah, it is a good score. I added the wheel on the bottom. I had another glider that didn't do so well, so I took all the when I repurpose airplanes, I purpose them. I've always wanted a fiberglass glider, and this is really a nice fiberglass glider. It has been crashed before. I have. Yeah, this thing is huge. It is big. So needs a bigger prop. Horizon Hobbies still builds folding props. They still sell them. I'm sorry. I'm going to get a 10.6 prop. I'll probably order that in the next couple of weeks. So I can get this back up in the air. It's just been windy. Really not good flying weather, especially on a first flight. it is a pretty heavy plane. I will put most likely a 2200 in it to get the power that I want, because it is a pretty heavy plane. But yeah, so I added the bottom gear and the landing gear. It had a cutout, it had a picture, basically a drawing of where you would put the landing gear. I guess the person never really installed it. I'm assuming I'm probably the fourth owner of this aircraft, because this plane has been crashed quite a number of times. It's got lots of cracks in it. What I'm definitely going to do is sand it down a little bit and repaint it before I do my first flight, make it look a little bit more aesthetically pretty. I got the plexi over there, folds over like this. Somebody, I don't know if you can see it in the camera really well, but somebody put a lot of foam in the back to make it rigidly hard. So all this is hard. Oops, oh, that's soft. But this is here. This is a little bit lighter. But yeah, it's a really nice glider. I'm quite excited to see how it flies. And I know the landing gear will do better, because when it came into a landing before, whoever owned it before kept ripping up and scuffing up the bottom. I don't like that too much. I like to make something, if I'm going to make something last and be a little bit more pleasing when it lands, at least this will be allowing to be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So other than that, here's the control surfaces for the T6. And I've been working on these for a while. When it comes to buying stuff to fabricate like hinges and things like that, I actually do a lot of repurposing. Like all this here, this is actually plexi, like plastic. You know those egg cartons that are plastic? I usually, what I'll do is I'll cut out the egg plastic. I'll take the carton. We'll eat the eggs, and then the carton usually ends up going back to the people that we get our eggs from. Or I grab hold of it and I make my own wing tabs for them. So this one has a wing tab on here. The wiring came from some spare wire I had. I kind of had to make a judgment on where, because again, I don't have plans for these aircraft. A lot of these planes don't have plans, so I have to think about how it was put together. I do a lot of outer zone stuff. I look on outer zone and see if I can find what plans are out there, and things like that. So that's this is the I'm assuming the person that owned that T6 before me, he had a lot of spare parts. So these are some of the spare parts for it. If you guys ever wanted to know how do I make some of the parts, I'll get file, like hard stock file, manila folder stuff, and that's how I'll trace it out, and that's how I do it. Those are my traceable parts. What are we talking? Let's see. What else can we talk about today? So yeah, I'll make all my components and I'll save all my components. I'll get little Ziploc bags. You buy a box of Ziploc bags and keep all your components for your trace. That way, if you crash your plane, which it has happened to all of us, we do crash our planes, you can make new parts for your aircraft and rebuild it. I see a lot of these guys online and they buy these foamies and then they bash them, for clicks and views. And I'm not into that. You're going to spend $500-$600 on an airplane. I'm going to spend a lot of time building this plane together. I like to take care of my aircraft and have spare parts. And not only that, fix them up. There's a lot of planes out there that, they get thrown in the garbage. I bet you any plane that goes in the garbage, you could probably end up fixing it. If you really look at it, I mean, unless it is just literally a pile of parts, like they're little itty bitty pieces of parts of the airplane, you could probably still repair it. You could probably still put it back together. I mean, instead of tossing it in the garbage, take it home, see if you still have, I mean, if you still had the parts cut out for it, you could rebuild the plane and use some of the old parts into the new parts and keep the airplane flying. That's what's great about like building your own airplane. We get a lot of we've become a consumer society where we just go out and buy foamy aircraft, and they're great planes, don't get me wrong. Those are really cool looking nice planes to get. But Colin, thanks. Just keep watching. And you can catch the video after we're done and watch the end of it. But yep, have a good dinner. Hope you're having pizza. Respects. Can't wait to see your next model. But you gotta really just you got a Kyosho R1300. Yeah, I'd like to get some videos on that. I'd like to see the video of you building it. I hope it's pretty cool, EQ. Back to when you buy an airplane, you fly it, something worse to happen where you end up crashing it or damaging it, continue to put it back together and try to keep it flying. A lot of people nowadays, they think, I'll just buy another airplane. They get expensive after a while. That's why I like building my own plane. I like building the building process of building an airplane, because you get to learn a lot about the plane, especially if you're getting into aviation. You could build an airplane, you read the books and everything like that, and you kind of learn a little bit of the history. It's like the Puss Moth. I didn't know what a Puss Moth was. I didn't know there was actually a plane called the Puss Moth. I saw the plans and I was like, oh wow, look at Puss Moth, and this is pretty interesting. And then I started looking up the history, and I had no idea that this plane was built from 1929 to 1933. I mean, who knew? Had a 130 horsepower motor on it. I didn't know that. It was a straight inline 5 motor, same as the first Tiger Moths and the Gypsy Moth. The Gypsy Moth also had the same motor. It was It was a streamlined aircraft, all wood, 2 passengers in the back, 1 passenger in the front. It was a British-built aircraft. You could actually fold the wings just like a Fieseler Storch. You could fold the wings and actually put the plane in your barn if you wanted to. It was a replacement for the DH-85 Leopard Moth, which if you go online and type in Leopard Moth, it's DH-85. I'll put a link in the description box below. As much as we don't want to read Wikipedia, when it comes to certain facts about airplanes, they do at least have photos that you can refer to. But the Leopard Moth, there was only 133 of the Leopard Moth built, and it was only built for 3 years. The Puss Moth was actually built longer. The first prototype flew in 1933 on May 27th. That was for the Leopard Moth. The Puss Moth, on the other hand, first flight was September 9th of 1929. And the last one rolled off the assembly line in 1933. So that's a little bit of the Puss Moth. Now, the Fieseler Storch. Let's get into the little information that we have about that aircraft, huh? So it was built from 1937 until 1945. And then France ramped up production of it in 1970. Actually, in the 1950s. and it was done until the 1970s. It was being built. They used it as a liaison spotting aircraft. The Soviets produced the aircraft, Czechoslovakia. So there were a lot of different variants made. Some had a Beamer motor in it, BMW motor. Others had a radial motor in it, so they would have put like a little Pratt and Whitney engine on it. Romania built one. They had 64 different types of this aircraft. So the reason I kind of made a whole stink about the landing gear, I'm thinking maybe the landing gear was just kind of like they when they built the model, they using the plans from that type of model, and since there's so many different variants of the Fieseler Storch. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. EQRC. I love seeing old movies, and there will be a plane in that. The newest model and looks brand new. Be interesting. Which movie? Pretty cool movie to watch would be. I hope you're not building a B-36 in that, because that was a big plane. Big plane, bigger than the B-29. So that Colin made a big B-29. But getting back to it, so the Fieseler Storch, was a plane that was built for so many years. It's like the J3 Cub. The J3 Cub, there were different variants of the J3 Cub. There was the Grasshopper, which was the L3 Grasshopper. And then there was the J5, which was a Piper Cub that was a 3-seater. And that was it had a bigger engine also on it. So, which later became the Super Cub. But hopefully the wind will kind of like subside. Today, the wind wasn't that bad. I probably could have gone flying, but I wanted to stay home and do some work on the 2 airplanes that I'm working on. Actually, 3 airplanes at the same time. I'm like that. I'll start building one thing, and then I'll work on 3 different planes, and then work on some things around the house at the same time also. But that's about it for tonight. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update of what's going on. Next week, we'll talk a little bit about history also, and we'll also have another update. Hopefully, I'll have an update more on the Storch, and just keep watching the videos as we go along. And again, please like and share, subscribe. Join us every Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. We'll talk about different types of aviation. And I hope to see you all then. Colin, EQ, I hope to see you guys too. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'll get you guys on the next one. Model Man Frank out.